Hey everybody, Adam from realworldworship.org here once again, talking about my Kemper profiler. And today I want to talk about this conversation of analog versus digital, because that is definitely part of the thought process when you're considering, do I go from a traditional guitar pedal board amp setup to a guitar into a digital platform setup? I don't think analog versus digital is the right question to ask anymore. I really don't. I mean, when you think about it, right, very few people truly run an all analog rig anymore. There are people that do. There are players who run a guitar into all analog effects, all analog signal chain into an analog tube amplifier. Fine. But most people don't, especially church players, and that's kind of where I focus, is church players. And if you came from a pedal board that was guitar into a Keeley plus compressor, into a Ibanez TS9, into a EHX Deluxe Memory Man Tap Tempo, okay, that's all digital, except, oh wait, the Deluxe Memory Man Tap Tempo is an all digital circuit, or an all analog circuit, but it has digital components in it. And then you're going into like a Boss RV5 or a Strymon Flint or something like that. You're no longer talking about analog versus digital. You have digital on your board, and that's assuming you only have one digital pedal. Maybe you've got a Boss DD7 going into a Source Audio Ventris. Maybe you have a Boss DD20 or a TC Nova delay going into an RV5 Strymon Big Sky RV500s. One of these digital reverbs, right? There's all kinds of reasons why somebody would have digital pedals on their board. So it's not really a question of analog versus digital, because we know that digital technology is really good. We are living in a golden age. So what's the question then? It's not analog versus digital. It's open versus closed. Open versus closed systems. And what I mean by that is this. The original Line 6 pod was a closed system. You got the pod, and you could use its effects and its amp modelers, and then you could go guitar into pod, go direct, or guitar, pod to an amp. And if you wanted to use effects, they either had to go before or after. So like my first foray into this, I had a Line 6 Pod XT Live. If I wanted to use another delay pedal, it went after, so I couldn't use the reverbs on the pod because I didn't want the reverbs going into the delay. Or if I wanted to use a different drive pedal, it needed to go before, so then that affected how I used the compressors and things like that. It was a closed system. Analog multi-effects, digital modelers, and profilers now are at least partially open systems. So for example, like the Line 6 Helix is a really open system. It has multiple loops, so that if you still want to use an analog compressor and an analog delay, you can put those into the effects loops on the Helix and then program it so that on this preset, you are going to use effects loop 1, which is your analog compressor, then the digital overdrive, then the digital delay, then the amp model and the IRs. Or you can say on this one, I want to use the digital compressor because the Helix has some fantastic compressors. And then I want to use the analog delay going into a Vox AC30 and some IRs, and that's my sound, right? I want that kind of U2 sound. So you can do that. It's a fairly open system. Then you can add things to the platform from the outside. It's not like the old days where it was either before or after, but not in. It's not integrated. It's not part of it. So when you're thinking about, do I go from analog to digital, the truth is, most likely you already have a hybrid analog-digital system somewhere along the line. So we're not asking that question, we're asking open versus closed. Can I use this system in a way that integrates what I want? The Helix is incredibly open. I have not personally played an Axe effect, but from what I've read and understand, it's very open. I use a Kemper. It's kind of open. You can do effects loops, but not as many and not in the same way as the Helix. but it's still there. If I want, like, one of the real weak spots in the Kemper's onboard effects is the compressor. So if I want to use an analog compression pedal or even a digital compression pedal that's just better and more options than the really lame option that they give you on the Kemper, I can. It's open. It's not a closed system. So when you're thinking about, do I go analog versus digital? That's not the question to ask. It's how open is this system? If I want a totally modular system, then I should probably stick with the traditional pedal board. And if I am okay with a partially open system, then I should consider the Helix or the Kemper or the Fractal or any of the other ones just the same as I would any other effects or amp system. It's not a question of analog versus digital. It's a question of what I want to accomplish with open versus closed. All right, this has been Adam from realworldworship.org, and I hope you have a great day. If you have any questions, comments, leave them below.